I hear a girl's voice from the basement. Don't talk to her. Creepypasta. We moved into the house at the start of summer just as school let out. It was supposed to be a fresh start. My dad had gotten a new job in a smaller town about 3 hours away from where we used to live, and after months of back and forth visits, paperwork, and weekend drives, my parents finally found a house that just felt right, as they put it. It was an old 2-story home at the edge of a quiet cul-de-sac, with ivy creeping up its front and a warped wooden fence enclosing the backyard. The lawn was overgrown, and the air always seemed heavier near the front porch, but I figured that was just small-town humidity and a lack of regular upkeep. At first, everything felt like a blank slate. New place, new people, new school. My younger brother, Mason, was already tearing through the halls with excitement, claiming the biggest room upstairs and yelling about how he'd seen a deer on the way in. My mom smiled, clearly relieved that he was adapting quickly. My dad, on the other hand, looked exhausted. He had this strange tightness around his eyes as if he hadn't slept much lately. I brushed it off. Grown-up stress, I thought. The neighbors were polite but distant. A woman next door, Mrs. Langford, brought over a lemon pie the second day we were there. She smiled, asked how the move went, then leaned in a little too close and muttered, "You're brave choosing that house." When I asked her what she meant, she just shook her head and smiled again, but it didn't reach her eyes. Nothing. Just silly old town stories. Don't mind me. She walked off before I could ask more. That stuck with me. Something about the way she said it didn't feel like a joke. Over the next week, I started picking up more odd comments. Mostly whispered between the mailman and a neighbor or murmured behind me at the grocery store when my mom gave our address. I even caught one kid on the sidewalk biking by slowly and staring up at the house like he expected something to pop out of the window. The vibe wasn't welcoming. It was cautious. Like people were waiting for the house to do something. Inside, it was just as unsettling. Everything creaked, the floors, the stairs, the cabinets, and the air was constantly cold even during the hottest part of the day. Most of the house could be explained away with age, but the basement was different. It had this old wooden door with a thick iron latch. Always locked. I tried opening it once on the second night, but it wouldn't budge. I asked my dad if we had a key. He froze for a second, then said, "Don't worry about the basement. It's just storage. Probably moldy. We'll get it cleaned later." I noticed how his voice tightened when he said it. Same with Mom. She changed the subject every time it came up, saying we had better things to focus on. Unpacking, decorating, settling in. But the weird part was every night, right around 2 a.m., I'd hear faint noises from down there. Not the kind of creaks or groans old houses usually make. No, this sounded like whispering. Not words I could make out at first, just the low hum of a voice. Soft, feminine. Almost like someone was talking to themselves. I told myself it was a draft, or plumbing, or just my imagination adjusting to a new place. But it didn't stop. It kept happening night after night. Then one night, I pressed my ear against the basement door, heart pounding, breath held. And I heard it. Clear as day. A soft girl's voice, barely above a whisper. She said my name. The next night, I stayed up. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that the voice was probably some kind of dream or maybe a sound from the pipes. Old houses do weird things at night. I even Googled it. Old house sounds like whispering. Some people blamed air ducts. Others said water moving through rusted plumbing could sound like voices. That made enough sense to calm me for a while. But around 2:17 a.m. it came again. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone with the brightness turned all the way down, when the sound drifted in. At first, it was so faint I thought I imagined it. Then it came again clearer. Not just whispering this time, crying. Soft, muffled sobs, the kind of crying you hear from someone trying not to be heard. I froze. The sound wasn't coming from my room. It was coming from below. I slipped out of bed, heart already thudding against my ribs. The hallway was quiet, bathed in shadows from the moonlight spilling through the blinds. I checked Mason's room first. He was curled under his blanket, mouth open, snoring lightly. No way it was him. My parents' door was closed. I pressed my ear to it, silence inside. Still, the crying continued. Low, broken, and desperate. I padded downstairs on bare feet, every step sounding too loud. The living room was dark. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't want to wake anyone or let them know I was up. The sound pulled me toward the kitchen, then to the basement door. I stopped. It was louder here. The crying was definitely coming from the other side. My breath caught. For a second I stood there just listening. Whoever it was, they weren't just crying now, they were speaking. Whispering again. Then I heard it. "Help me," the voice said. "Please, don't leave me here." The words crawled under my skin. My fingers hovered above the doorknob. I knew it wouldn't turn, it never did, but part of me still wanted to try. Before I could, a floorboard creaked behind me. I spun around, expecting to see one of my parents. No one. I looked back at the door. The crying had stopped. The next morning I tried to explain it to my mom. I didn't say I heard a girl, just that I thought I heard someone crying. She smiled, said maybe I was just anxious about the move and had a bad dream. When I insisted it sounded real, she frowned and asked if I was getting enough sleep. I dropped it after that. Later that day, I cornered my dad while he was fixing a cabinet hinge in the hallway. I asked him again if we could go into the basement. He didn't even look at me. Just muttered, "There's nothing down there worth seeing." "Then why keep it locked?" I pressed. He sighed and stood up, finally facing me. "Because it's not safe. Old stairs, weak supports. That part of the house needs work. I don't want anyone getting hurt." I stared at him. He wasn't lying. But he wasn't telling the full truth either. That night it happened again. This time I was ready. I stayed near the basement door, earbuds in with no music playing, pretending to listen to something while I waited. Just after 2 a.m. I heard the crying again. Louder now. More urgent. Then the voice said it again, almost like a chant. "Please, come talk to me. Please, come talk to me." The way she said it, not angry, not threatening, just lonely. Broken. My skin tingled. I whispered back, "Who are you?" No response. Just more sobbing. I reached for the doorknob again. Still locked, of course. But as my hand touched the cold metal, the voice whispered, "I know you hear me." I jerked back. The next day, I asked Mason if he ever heard anything weird at night. He gave me a confused look and said no. My parents still acted like I was imagining things. That's when I realized something strange. Only I could hear her. Not Mason. Not Mom. Not Dad. Only me. And each night the voice got clearer. Closer. More real. It wasn't just a room down there. Something was waiting. The next night I couldn't sleep. The voice hadn't come again, and somehow that made it worse. I found myself missing it, as strange as that sounds. It had become part of my night, like some grim routine. The silence made me uneasy, like the house was holding its breath. Around 3 a.m. I got up and wandered back to the basement door. Not because I expected to hear her again, but because I needed to know. I needed to understand what was going on. This time I brought a flashlight. I knelt by the door, running my hand along the frame, trying to feel for something, anything, that seemed out of place. My fingers traced a narrow crack along the wooden molding, and something scraped against my nail. I paused, then gently pried it loose with the edge of a metal ruler. A small piece of yellowed paper fluttered out and landed on the floor. It was folded several times, edges brittle and soft with age. I opened it slowly, careful not to tear it. The handwriting was jagged and uneven, written in pencil that had faded with time. Read, "Don't talk to her. Don't listen. She lies." Just that. Nothing else. No name, no date. Just a warning. I stared at it for a long time, trying to wrap my head around what I was looking at. The paper felt old, really old, and the way it had been hidden in the doorframe wasn't something a kid would do for fun. It was tucked too deep, too deliberately. Like someone wanted it to be found, eventually. I didn't sleep at all after that. The following afternoon, when my parents were out shopping and Mason was glued to his tablet, I started digging. I searched the house's address online, trying to find old listings, records, anything that might give me some kind of history. Most of it was just boring property transfers, changes in ownership, normal stuff. But then I found a forum thread on a local history blog. Someone had posted about weird energy at a house on our street, describing a cold basement and sounds no one could explain. They didn't mention an exact address, but it was close enough to make my stomach drop. I needed more. That evening, I walked next door to Mrs. Langford's house. She opened the door like she was expecting me. I think she was. I asked her outright, "Did something bad happen in our house?" She hesitated, eyes flicking behind me as if making sure no one else was listening. Then she stepped out onto the porch and closed the door behind her. "There was a family who lived there before you," she said softly. "Nice people. Quiet. They had a daughter. Sweet girl. Maybe 10 or 11. What happened to her?" I asked. She looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. She disappeared. No one knows how. No signs of a break-in, no forced entry. Just gone. One morning they woke up and she wasn't there. The door was still locked. Windows shut. Nothing made sense. I swallowed hard. Did they ever find her? No, Mrs. Langford shook her head slowly. They moved away not long after. The mother was never the same. Kept saying she could still hear her daughter crying from the basement. My skin went cold. I didn't tell her about the note. I didn't tell her that I heard the same thing. I just nodded, thanked her, and walked back home with a knot in my stomach and that single desperate sentence echoing in my mind. Don't talk to her. Don't listen. She lies. I tried to stay away from the basement door. I really did. For 2 days I kept my distance, avoided walking past it, avoided being downstairs alone. But the silence was unbearable. It wasn't that I missed the voice exactly, it was more like a pull. Like something incomplete, unfinished. My thoughts kept drifting back to her. The way she said my name. The sound of her crying. The warning on the old note, crumpled now in the back of my desk drawer, played on repeat in my mind. Don't talk to her. Don't listen. She lies. And yet, late one night I found myself sitting in front of the door again. It was quiet at first. No sounds, no voice. I sat there in the dark for a while, flashlight off, knees pulled to my chest. The air around the door felt colder than the rest of the house, like a draft was leaking from under the frame. My fingers hovered near the doorknob, but I didn't touch it. Instead I whispered, "Are you there?" Nothing. I waited another few minutes, heart ticking louder in my chest. Then, "I'm here." The voice was faint but unmistakable. Soft, hoarse, like she hadn't spoken in years. "Who are you?" I whispered. There was a long pause. Then she answered, "Lila." The name sent a jolt through me. It felt right somehow. Familiar, though I couldn't explain why. "Why are you down there?" Another silence. Then more softly, "He put me here. Someone bad." I pressed closer to the door, palms flat against the cold wood. "Who did?" "I don't know his name," she said. "But he locked me in. A long time ago." Something about the way she spoke sent chills down my spine. Not because it was creepy, but because it didn't feel like a ghost story. It felt real. Her voice cracked when she said "locked me in," like she was still holding on to the fear. Still living it. "Did he hurt you?" I asked. Pause. "He said he wouldn't, but he lied." I felt my throat tighten. "How long have you been there?" "I don't know," she whispered. "The days are all the same. The dark never ends." "Lila," I said quietly, "I want to help you." The silence that followed stretched too long. For a moment I thought she was gone again. Then her voice came back, trembling, closer than before. "Will you really?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "You're the first one who's talked to me," she said. "Everyone else pretends I'm not here. Even when I cry. Even when I scream." "I believe you," I whispered. Something in the air changed after that. I could feel her presence now, not just hear her. Like the energy around the door had shifted, thickened. Her voice became stronger, more emotional. I could hear her breathing sometimes between sentences. Could almost imagine her sitting on the other side of the door, knees tucked just like mine. "Thank you," she said one night. "I thought I'd be alone forever." I didn't know what to say. I was scared, of what I was doing, of what I was learning, but I couldn't stop now. Some part of me had accepted this. Lila was real. She was trapped. And I had to find a way to free her. Even if every part of me screamed that I shouldn't. It didn't take long for things to start changing. At first, it was just little things, stuff you could blame on faulty wiring or old appliances. The kitchen light would flicker sometimes when I walked by, the TV would glitch for a second and then fix itself. One night, my phone screen froze while I was texting, then went black for a solid 30 seconds. When it came back on, my wallpaper had changed. I never touched it. It was just solid black now, like the phone had been wiped clean. And then there was Toby, our cat. He used to be the most fearless little thing, always running underfoot, jumping on counters, pouncing on shadows like they were alive. But lately he wouldn't even go near the basement. He used to nap in the hallway right next to it, but now he avoided the entire side of the house. I caught him growling once, low and deep, ears flat against his head, just staring at the basement door for 10 minutes straight. I tried to coax him over, but he hissed at me and darted upstairs. The dreams were worse. It started with simple things. Hearing footsteps echoing in a pitch-black room, the sound of soft crying in the distance. But the longer I talked to Lila, the more vivid they became. I'd find myself standing in the middle of a concrete room, no windows, no lights. The only sound was the steady, broken sobs of a little girl echoing off the walls. And no matter how far I walked, I never found her. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, with the sound of her voice still echoing in my ears. Sometimes I'd hear her whisper right as I woke up, "Don't leave me again." I started keeping a journal, writing down the dates, the dreams, the things I was noticing. I didn't even realize how obsessed I'd become until I looked at the pages one morning and realized there were weeks' worth of entries. most of them written between midnight and 3 a.m. One night I asked her why she was trapped. Her voice came back softer than usual, tired. "Because I knew too much," she said. "Because I saw what he did." "Who?" I asked. There was a pause. Then she said, "They locked me in here so I wouldn't tell you the truth." "The truth about what?" "I can't say it yet," she whispered. "You're not ready." I didn't know what that meant, but the way she said it made my stomach twist. After that conversation, the activity picked up. Things started happening in the open. I'd leave my room for 2 minutes and come back to find my desk chair turned around facing the door. Once my closet light turned on by itself, and stayed on even after I unplugged it. And then one evening I came home to find all the picture frames in the hallway had fallen to the floor. Glass shattered, photos flipped upside down. No one else was home. Nothing else was touched. When I asked my mom about it, she said maybe Toby knocked them over. But he hadn't even been downstairs. And through it all, Lila kept talking. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes she whispered. Sometimes she just breathed into the silence, letting me know she was still there. Each night, I felt the line between us thinning, the barrier between her world and mine slowly dissolving. And somewhere deep down, a part of me started to wonder if I was bringing her closer, or if she was pulling me in. I became obsessed with finding out what happened in this house. It wasn't enough to talk to Lila through the door anymore, not when her voice had started changing. Not when the warmth I used to hear in her words was now tinged with something sharp, something colder. Every time I hesitated to answer her, every time I pulled back from the basement or avoided her questions, her tone would shift. Less gentle, more demanding. Not angry, not yet, but like she was losing patience. So I did what I had to do. I started digging. The public library downtown had old archives and property records going back decades. I spent hours there, flipping through newspaper clippings, local real estate registries, and anything else that might mention the house. It took a few visits, but eventually I found what I was looking for. An article from 1983 with a headline that read, "Local Girl Vanishes Without a Trace." There was a photo of her. Her hair was lighter, her cheeks fuller, but it was her. The girl from the basement. Lila. According to the article, her name was Lila Thurman. She was 11 years old when she vanished. The parents claimed she went to bed one night and was gone the next morning. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints, no struggle. Police never found a single lead. The article mentioned something strange, that Lila had reportedly been hearing voices in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. She told her teacher about them. Said someone was talking to her from inside the walls. The school counselor dismissed it as stress. Her parents refused to talk about it publicly. I took photos of the article with my phone and went straight home. That night, I waited until my family was asleep and crept downstairs, flashlight in one hand, crowbar in the other. The door was still locked, but I didn't care. I wasn't going through it. I had noticed something odd a few days before. A thin seam in the drywall along the right side of the basement stairwell. The paneling didn't match the rest. It looked newer, like it had been redone. Covered up. I pried at the edge with the crowbar, and the drywall gave way with a dull crunch. Behind it wasn't insulation or framing, it was a hollow cavity just wide enough to crawl through. The space was musty, the air stale and dry. Dust clung to everything, thick as ash. I aimed my flashlight around the tiny hidden room, heart in my throat. There were toys scattered on the ground, faded dolls, rusted metal cars, a jump rope curled like a snake. A child's mattress sat in one corner, the fabric brittle and yellowed. Then I saw the drawings. They were pinned haphazardly to the wall with nails, dozens of them. Crude, childish sketches done in black crayon. Most of them showed a little girl standing alone, surrounded by shadowy figures. One picture showed the girl screaming, hands over her ears, while dark shapes hovered above her bed. Another showed a door, the basement door, with red scribbles bleeding from its edges. In the center of the room sat a broken music box, the kind with a spinning ballerina inside. I picked it up and turned the key. Nothing happened. Next to it was a small, half-burned journal. Most of the pages were blackened and unreadable, but a few survived. One of them read, "Lila keeps talking. She won't stop. Even when she's not here." I told them. I tried to get help. But no one believes me. No one hears her but me. I dropped the page like it burned. There were more entries, fragments about things moving in the night, and her voice being inside my head. The last legible line was, "They said she's gone. But she's not. She never left." I crawled back out, sealing the wall behind me as best I could. When I stood up, I felt it. A pressure in the air. Then her voice came. Right behind the door. "You found it," she said. Her tone was different now. No more softness. No more tears. You're so close now. Don't stop. I hesitated. My hand hovered over the doorknob. She spoke again, quieter, sharper. Why are you waiting? Something about her voice didn't sound like a child anymore. It happened during a storm. The kind that shakes the whole house. Rain hammered the windows like fists, and thunder cracked so loud it felt like the sky was ripping apart. The lights flickered once, twice, then died altogether. Darkness swallowed everything. I sat on my bed, heart pounding. Lila had been silent for 2 days. Not a whisper. Not a breath. And that scared me more than any of her cries. That night though, she came back. Loud. Desperate. Not from behind the door anymore. From inside my head. You have to let me out, she screamed. You said you would help me. I clutched the sides of my head, squeezing my eyes shut. Her voice echoed from every corner of my skull. It didn't fade. It didn't stop. I'm trapped. I'm still trapped. Why are you just standing there? The walls around me felt like they were shrinking. Like the house was pushing me, guiding me toward the basement. I didn't even grab a flashlight this time. I just moved. The hallway pulsed with shadows. Every creak of the floorboard sounded like a scream. I stood in front of the basement door, soaked in sweat and shaking, thunder booming above me. My hand reached for the knob before I could think. Before I could remember the warnings. The door was unlocked. I froze. The lock was always sealed, always bolted from the outside. But now, it turned easily. She was waiting. I knew you'd come, Lila whispered. But she didn't sound grateful. She sounded certain. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a staircase that looked like it descended far deeper than I remembered. The walls were damp and cracked, stretching downward into blackness. It wasn't just a basement anymore. It was something else. Something bigger. The steps moaned under my weight as I started descending. The air grew colder with each step, thick and heavy like I was sinking underwater. My fingers trailed along the walls, but they felt wrong, spongy, uneven, as if the house itself was warping. Lila's voice drifted up from below, echoing through the dark. Don't stop. I'm just down here. Just a little farther. But her tone was different now. Like someone playing pretend. Too smooth. Too calm. I'm waiting for you, she said more softly. You promised. I reached the bottom of the stairs and stepped into complete blackness. My eyes tried to adjust, but there was nothing to see. Just the sensation of space. Wide, endless space. Then I felt it. Not a sound, not a breeze. A presence. Something was in the dark with me. Watching. I couldn't move. My body locked up, breath trapped in my throat. Lila's voice was right beside my ear now. You opened the door, she whispered. Now you can never leave. I don't know how long I stood there in the dark before I realized I was still holding the flashlight. My hand was clenched so tightly around it, my knuckles ached. I flicked it on, and a weak, flickering beam cut through the pitch black, barely illuminating more than a few feet ahead. The stairs behind me had vanished into the dark. Or maybe they'd always been gone. Either way, going back wasn't an option. The basement didn't feel like a room anymore. It felt endless, like a cavern carved out beneath the house that had no business being there. The walls were rough concrete at first, but as I walked deeper, the surface changed. More like rock than construction. Cold. Uneven. And everywhere I looked there were scratches. Not like someone had used a tool. These were fingernail marks, jagged, desperate, carved over and over again. Some were shallow. Some were so deep, it looked like skin must have torn from the bone trying to make them. I raised the flashlight and scanned the wall. The scratches weren't random. They were words. Help me. I'm still here. You won't let me out. She lies. She lies. She lies. The last phrase was carved more than any of the others, hundreds of times, overlapping like someone had written it until they couldn't anymore. That's when I heard it. Not Lila. Other voices. Whispers. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Some were sobbing. Some were laughing, high, broken giggles that seemed to echo from behind the walls. A few were whispering my name. I whipped the flashlight around, trying to find the source, but every direction looked the same. I was surrounded by darkness, whispers, and the echo of people who were no longer people. Then my light caught something at the end of a narrow tunnel. It shimmered faintly, glass. A tall, arched mirror standing on its own, covered in dust but unbroken. I approached slowly, the whispers growing louder. The mirror was old, the kind you'd see in some antique store that smelled like rotten mothballs. The frame was ornate, blackened with age and cracked at the corners. I stared into it and gasped. In the reflection, I wasn't alone. Standing behind me was a girl. Pale, thin, hollow eyes sunken into her face. Her hair hung in damp, tangled strands around her shoulders. She wore a white dress stained with dirt and something darker. Lila. She didn't speak at first. Just stared at me through the glass, unmoving, mouth slightly open. Then her lips moved. "Break the mirror," she whispered. "Please. It's the only way." I turned around, no one was there. I looked back. She was still in the reflection. Still pleading. "Break it," she said again more urgently. "It's the only way to free me." My heart pounded. Every instinct screamed at me not to. The warning in the journal. The voices in the walls. She lies. And yet, her eyes, they were filled with something that looked like pain. "Please," she said, voice cracking. "You promised to help." I raised the flashlight. My hand trembled. In the mirror, she reached toward me. I hesitated for just 1 second. Then I swung. The mirror shattered on impact. The flashlight struck it dead center, and the glass exploded in every direction, shards clattering across the stone floor like ice breaking on a frozen lake. For a moment, everything went still. No voices, no whispers, no Lila. Just silence. Then she laughed. It started as a soft giggle like before, but it kept growing, stretching, warping. The sound echoed off the walls, deeper and deeper, until it wasn't a laugh at all. It was something else, a rumble, low and inhuman, shaking the ground beneath my feet. I stumbled back, flashlight flickering in my hand, the beam barely holding. The air grew thick, pressing in from all sides. The darkness wasn't just dark anymore. Moved. "You broke it," the voice said. But it wasn't Lila's anymore. It was older. Rotten. Twisted. "I told you to help me," it growled. "And you did." The basement trembled. Cracks spread through the walls. That cold pressure behind my eyes pulsed harder than ever, like something was pushing its way out from inside my skull. Images began flashing in my mind, not my memories. Hers. A little girl standing at the top of the basement stairs, staring down into the dark, crying, calling for someone who didn't answer. Her mother sobbing behind her bedroom door. Her father hammering boards over the entrance to the basement, hands trembling. Not to keep someone out. To keep her in. Lila wasn't trapped. She was sealed. I saw it, how it started. How she spoke to something she shouldn't have. Something ancient, something that answered her from beneath the floorboards. How she changed. Her eyes turning black. Her voice shifting. Her body becoming still while something inside her woke up. Her parents had tried everything. Priests, doctors, police. No one could help. So they locked her in that room. Not because they didn't love her, because they did. They sealed the mirror to hold what she had become. To keep it from reaching anyone else. To keep it from spreading. And I had just shattered it. "You believed her," the voice hissed, surrounding me. "You invited me back." I turned and ran, flashlight barely casting a glow as the basement twisted around me. The narrow tunnel that brought me here was gone. The walls bent in impossible angles, bleeding shadow. Laughter followed me, no longer Lila's, but something wearing her memory like a mask. The house wasn't cursed. It wasn't haunted. It was a prison. And I had opened the door. The power never came back on. When I finally reached the top of the basement stairs, breath ragged and heart barely keeping rhythm, the entire house was cloaked in a suffocating darkness. Not the kind you could chase away with a candle or a phone screen. This was complete. Like light itself had been swallowed. I stumbled into the hallway, disoriented, covered in dust and sweat and something else. Something that smelled like old soil and rust. My flashlight had gone dead 5 steps from the top. All I had now were my hands and my memory of the layout. I called for my parents. My voice cracked in the silence. No answer. Then a scream. My mother's. It came from the living room, sharp, terrified, then cut off like someone had severed it mid-breath. I ran toward the sound, feet slipping on the hardwood as I slammed into the wall, then turned the corner. They were standing there, both of them. My mom was crying, clutching my dad's arm. He had the basement key in his hand. I could barely make out their faces in the dim, flickering shadows that now danced unnaturally along the walls. "What's happening?" I shouted. My dad looked at me with wide, hollow eyes. "What did you do?" Before I could answer, the floor beneath us groaned. Not from weight. From something waking up. Then it opened. Right in front of my father, the hardwood split like cracking ice. Black tendrils, shadowy and slick, shot up and coiled around his leg. He screamed, kicking, trying to pull away. My mom grabbed his arm and pulled, sobbing, but more of the tendrils wrapped around him, dragging him down. I lunged forward, but he shouted, "Don't." Then the darkness pulled him into the floor like water, and he was gone. My mom collapsed to her knees, shaking, whispering prayers under her breath. I grabbed her, pulled her to her feet. We have to go. We have to get out. We tried. God, we tried. But the house wouldn't let us. The front door was gone. The windows solid black. Like the world outside had vanished. The rooms no longer made sense. Hallways led back into themselves. Doors opened into closets that stretched into miles of nothing. The voice came back, soft now, gentle, mocking. Why are you running? I thought you wanted to help. My mom froze, eyes wide. That voice, she whispered. I used to hear that voice when I was little. She didn't get to finish. Something moved in the dark. A blur. A sound like breath and bones snapping. She was just gone. And I was alone. Now I'm in the attic. It's the only place the darkness hasn't fully swallowed. For now. I can hear footsteps below. Slow, patient. They never rush. They don't have to. I found my phone. The battery's low, but I'm recording this. If anyone ever finds it, if anyone ever comes to this house, don't go near the basement. Don't listen to her. Don't talk to her. I thought I was helping someone. But she was never someone. She was something. A voice without a face. A hunger pretending to be human. I let her out. She's here now. In the walls. In the mirrors. Static fills the last few seconds of the recording. Then just before the clip ends, there's a whisper. So quiet you almost miss it. She's behind me. I shouldn't have talked to her. Click. Silence.